The HR conference room had glass walls. Everyone could see me sitting there, but no one could hear what was happening inside. Mark Ellison sat across from me. His expression calm, almost sympathetic. Beside him, Patricia from HR shuffled papers without meeting my eyes. "Hannah," Mark began, his voice measured and professional. "This is unfortunate, but we've received a serious complaint regarding your conduct." My stomach dropped. "What complaint?" Patricia slid a document across the table. My name was at the top. Below it, words jumped out at me. Unauthorized access. Policy violation. Breach of security protocol. Sole responsibility. "I don't understand," I said, scanning the page. "What access? When did this happen?" Mark leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Thursday evening. The restricted server room. You entered without proper authorization." "But you told me to." "I never authorized restricted access," Mark interrupted smoothly. "That would violate multiple policies." Patricia finally looked at me. Her expression was blank, professional, final. "Hannah, we need your badge." The room felt smaller suddenly. This wasn't a conversation. This was an execution. The walk from the HR room to the exit felt endless. Security waited by my desk, not threatening, just present. My coworkers stared at their screens, suddenly fascinated by spreadsheets and emails. Nobody spoke. Nobody asked what happened. The Slack channels I could still see on my phone went silent the moment I stood up. I packed my personal items into a cardboard box someone had already prepared. Coffee mug, desk plant, framed photo of my sister. Everything that proved I'd existed here for 4 years fit into one small box. Mark's office door was open. He stood by the window, arms crossed, watching. When our eyes met, I saw it. Just for a second. Faint smile. Not satisfaction. Not regret. Just the quiet confidence of someone who'd played a game and won. The security guard walked beside me to the exit. Professional. Polite. Doing his job. At the door, I held my badge against the sensor one last time. Beeped red. Access denied. Already deactivated. The glass doors closed behind me with a soft click. For weeks earlier, everything had been different. "Hannah, quick question." Mark appeared at my desk, coffee in hand. That easy smile he used when he wanted something. "I need you to pull some files from the archive server. Just routine cleanup." "Which files?" I asked, already opening my access panel. "The Morrison account records. They're in restricted storage, but it's fine. Just a quick grab." I hesitated. "I don't have clearance for restricted access." Mark waved his hand dismissively. "You do now. I proved it this morning. Just handle it, okay? I'm in meetings all afternoon." He walked away before I could ask for written confirmation. That happened a lot with Mark. Verbal instructions, urgent requests, always framed as simple tasks that somehow involved bending protocols just slightly. Later that day, I sent him an email. Just confirming. "You approved my access for the Morrison files in restricted storage?" His response came 3 hours later. "Let's discuss in person. Too much email creates confusion." We never discussed it. And I never got written approval. The team meeting happened 2 weeks before everything fell apart. I was mid-sentence, presenting the quarterly compliance report, when Mark interrupted. "Hannah, can I jump in here?" Paused. "Sure." "I think what Hannah's trying to say," Mark began, smiling at the room, "is that we need to be less rigid about processes. Hannah tends to be very by the book, which is great for compliance, but not always great for leadership." Laughter rippled around the table. Uncomfortable but present. Tyler from accounting grinned. "That's Hannah. Rules for everything." Mark nodded, still smiling. "Exactly. We need team players who understand that sometimes you have to be flexible." I sat down, face burning. Patricia from HR sat in the corner, laptop open, watching. She said nothing. The meeting continued without me. Afterward, Mark stopped by my desk. "Hey, don't take that personally. Just trying to keep things light." "It felt personal," I said quietly. He shrugged. Leadership requires thick skin. Something to work on. Then came the email. Subject: Compliance Review. Effective immediately. We'll be conducting a comprehensive review of departmental compliance procedures. All protocols and access logs will be audited. He'd copied 3 executives. I sent an email to HR the next morning. I'd like to discuss some concerns about recent team dynamics and communication protocols. No response. I followed up 2 days later. Still nothing. Meanwhile, my workload doubled. Mark delegated projects that weren't in my job description. He'd stand by my desk, drop a folder and say, "Handle this by end of day." When I asked about priorities, he'd sigh. "This is why flexibility matters, Hannah." His emails changed too. Every message now copied executives. Every request framed to make me look difficult. Per our conversation, Hannah expressed concerns about taking on additional responsibilities. I've explained these are team needs, but wanted leadership visibility on potential capacity issues. I never expressed concerns. Asked for clarity. Then came the project removal. No announcement. No explanation. I opened Monday's meeting agenda and my name was gone from the Westfield implementation. 3 months of work. Just erased. Casey, the project lead, wouldn't meet my eyes when I asked about it. Thursday evening. The office nearly empty. I was finishing expense reports when Mark appeared. "Hannah, I need you to grab something from the server room. The backup drive for Morrison. We need it first thing tomorrow." "The server room requires supervisor authorization," I said. "I'm authorizing it right now." Mark pulled out his phone, tapped something. "There. You're cleared. Just swipe in, grab the drive on shelf B7, lock up. 10 minutes. He walked with me to the security door. Stood beside me as I hesitated. "It's approved, Hannah. I just authorized it." I swiped my badge. The light turned green. The door clicked open. Mark smiled. "Perfect. B7. I'll be in my office." He turned and walked away. Never swiped his own badge. Never entered with me. I stepped inside alone. The lights flickered on automatically. Row after row of servers hummed quietly. Above the door, a small camera blinked red. Recording. Always recording. I found the drive, locked up, left. Mark was already gone when I passed his office. The promotion announcement came during Tuesday's all-hands meeting. "We're excited to announce James Cooper as our new senior operations manager," Mark said, smiling at James across the room. I stared at my laptop screen. I'd applied for that position. Had 2 rounds of interviews. Was told I was definitely in consideration. Mark continued. "This role requires someone leadership can trust completely. Someone who understands that flexibility and judgment matter as much as following procedures. Trust concerns." He said it like everyone already knew. Like it was established fact. I hadn't known there were any concerns. After the meeting, Tyler leaned over. "What did you do?" he whispered. "What do you mean?" He glanced around. "Mark's been saying things. About you not being a team player. About concerns with your judgment." "What things?" Tyler wouldn't elaborate. Just shook his head and walked away. That afternoon, 3 people who usually ate lunch with me suddenly had other plans. Back in the HR room. Present day. Patricia reviewed the complaint again, reading each charge slowly. Unauthorized access. No documentation. Solo entry. Security breach. Mark sat beside her, nodding at appropriate moments, adding quiet confirmations. "That's correct. Unfortunately, yes. I wish it weren't true." "Hannah," Patricia said, closing the folder. "This is very serious. The restricted server room requires explicit supervisor authorization and dual entry. You entered alone, with no documented approval." "Mark told me to," I said again. "He authorized my access that evening." Mark's expression shifted to concern. "Hannah, I never authorized restricted access. I wouldn't." You know that violates multiple protocols. You were standing right there. You told me to get the Morrison backup drive. I may have mentioned we needed that drive eventually, Mark said carefully. But I certainly never told you to access the restricted area. That's a serious accusation. Patricia made notes. Lots of notes. The door opened. Gerald from legal stepped in, tablet in hand. Sorry I'm late. My chest tightened. Legal meant this was already decided. Gerald took the seat beside Patricia. Let's clarify the timeline. Mark, when did you become aware of this access? Monday morning, Mark said. Security sent an automated alert about the unauthorized entry. I was shocked, honestly. I immediately contacted HR. I leaned forward. You told me to access that room. You authorized it on your phone. I watched you do it. Mark's voice remained calm, almost gentle. Hannah, I think you may have misunderstood our conversation. I mentioned we'd eventually need those files processed, but through proper channels. With documented approval. I would never verbally authorize restricted access. But you did. I'm sorry, but I didn't. Mark looked at Patricia and Gerald. I think the stress of recent performance concerns may have led to some confusion about protocol. Performance concerns. Now it was performance concerns. Patricia wrote more notes. Gerald tapped on his tablet. Nobody challenged Mark. Nobody asked for proof. Nobody questioned his version. I realized something then, sitting in that glass room with everyone watching. They'd already decided. This meeting was theater. The ending was written before I walked in. Alone in my apartment that night, I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. Mark's instructions. Badge swipe. The camera blinking overhead. Camera. I sat up suddenly. 4 years ago, I'd worked on the security system implementation. Not installation, but the audit and compliance documentation. I'd spent weeks mapping camera coverage, access logs, retention policies. I knew what that system recorded. Every badge swipe. Every authorized override. Every entry and exit. And I knew the retention period. 90 days for routine footage, 1 year for flagged incidents. If Mark had authorized my access remotely, there'd be a log. If he'd been present, there'd be footage. If he'd accessed that area himself recently, there'd be proof. I pulled up the company handbook on my laptop. Page 47. Employee rights during internal investigations. Right there, buried in dense text. Employees under review may request relevant security footage and access logs through formal channels. I opened my email and started typing. Subject. Formal documentation request. Friday morning I sent the calmest email of my life. To whom it may concern. I'm writing to cooperate fully with the ongoing investigation. To ensure accuracy, I respectfully request copies of all relevant documentation, including badge access logs, security footage from Thursday evening, and any supervisor authorization records for the date in question. Professional. Reasonable. Exactly what the handbook specified. I copied HR, legal, and compliance. Not Mark. The response came within an hour. From compliance, not Patricia. Your request is noted and will be processed per standard protocol. Timeline 5 to 7 business days. At my laptop that afternoon, I drafted a timeline. Every conversation with Mark. Every verbal instruction. Every instance where he'd asked me to just handle something without documentation. Every email where I'd asked for written approval and received deflection. I saved everything to 3 separate drives. That evening Mark called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Hannah, hi. Listen, I know this is difficult, but we should probably talk. I want to make sure you understand nobody's trying to hurt you here. This is just protocol. Call me back. I deleted the voicemail without responding. Then I recovered it from trash and saved it to my documentation folder. Monday morning Patricia called. Hannah, we're placing you on administrative leave pending the completion of our review. Your system access has been temporarily suspended. We'll be in touch with updates. How long will this take? These things vary. We'll keep you informed. I wasn't invited to ask questions. The call ended in under 3 minutes. By noon my work email stopped syncing. My VPN access returned an error. My badge deactivated completely. Casey texted me that afternoon. Hey, everything okay? Mark said you're taking personal time. That's not what's happening, I replied. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Something feels wrong about all this. I don't know what, but something's off. Did Mark say anything else? Just that you needed space. That the job was getting to you. But that doesn't sound like you. It's not. Casey didn't respond after that. But she'd planted something important. In a building where Mark controlled the narrative, doubt was a crack. Mark grew confident. Too confident. Wednesday afternoon, Casey forwarded me an email. No message, just the forward. Subject line: Team Efficiency Update. From Mark to the entire department. As we navigate current transitions, I want to remind everyone that problems can be handled professionally and quietly. Leadership means making tough calls and moving forward without dwelling on individual setbacks. Proud of this team's resilience. I read it 3 times. Problems can be handled. Past tense. Like it was already finished. Thursday brought another email. This one was worse. From Mark to Gerald in legal. Quick clarification on the restricted access incident. I definitely never gave verbal authorization for Hannah to enter that area. Our conversation was about eventually processing those files through proper channels. I'm concerned she may have misinterpreted routine discussion as explicit approval, which raises questions about judgment and protocol understanding. Casey forwarded that one too. He's contradicting himself, she wrote. Last week he told me he'd mentioned those files to you. Now he's saying it was vague future planning. I saved both emails immediately. Mark was rewriting history in real time. Creating new versions of conversations, adjusting details, covering gaps. But he was doing it in writing. He was building my case for me. The email from compliance arrived Friday morning. Subject: Documentation request. Status update. Per your formal request, relevant security footage has been located and preserved. Badge access logs for the specified date range have been compiled. Supervisor authorization records are being reviewed. Please note that an override log from the evening in question triggered automatic preservation protocols. Override log. Automatic preservation. I read those words 5 times. If there was an override log, that meant someone with supervisor credentials had remotely authorized access. The system automatically preserved footage when overrides occurred, flagging them for security review. Mark had authorized my access. The system recorded it. And he didn't know that footage was preserved. I typed a careful response. Thank you for the update. I appreciate compliance's thoroughness in preserving all relevant records. Please let me know if you need any additional information from me. Professional. Cooperative. Grateful. I didn't mention that I already knew what that footage would show. Didn't mention that Mark had just made a fatal mistake. I simply waited. Tuesday afternoon, compliance called. Not Patricia. Not Gerald. The head of security operations. A man named Vincent Cross. Ms. Price, I'm reviewing footage from Thursday, October 19th. I need to ask you some questions. Of course. At 6:47 p.m., you entered the restricted server room. Is that correct? Yes. Prior to entry, did you receive authorization? Yes. Mark Ellison authorized my access. Silence. Then, can you describe how that authorization occurred? I explained everything. Mark appearing at my desk. The request for the Morrison backup drive. Walking together to the security door. Him pulling out his phone and tapping something. You're cleared, he'd said. And did Mr. Ellison enter the restricted area with you? No. He walked away after I swiped in. More silence. Ms. Price, the footage shows something interesting. At 6:43 p.m., 4 minutes before your entry, Mark Ellison entered the restricted server room using his own credentials. He was inside for approximately 8 minutes. My breath caught. He was already in there. Yes. And at 6:46 p.m., his supervisor credentials were used to remotely authorize your badge for that specific door. One-time temporary access. The authorization came from his phone. So he authorized me while he was inside. Correct. And there's more. Waited. This isn't the first time. Vincent Cross sent me a document. Encrypted. Password protected. Inside were logs. Dozens of entries spanning 8 months. Mark authorizing temporary access for different employees. Always verbal instructions. Always urgent requests. Always restricted areas. Tyler from accounting. 3 times. Casey from project management. 8. James, the one who got my promotion. 5 times. Others I didn't recognize. Always the same pattern. Mark would authorize access remotely, usually while already inside the restricted area himself. The employee would enter, retrieve something, leave. Mark would exit separately. Then nothing. No follow-up. No documentation. No record except the security logs that nobody checked unless something went wrong. Till now. Until someone needed a scapegoat. Ms. Price, Vincent said over the phone, this pattern suggests systematic protocol circumvention. Mr. Ellison appears to have been using other employees to access restricted materials without creating a direct digital trail to himself. So I was just the one who got blamed. You're the first one who got caught. Or rather, the first one he reported. The timeline suddenly made terrible sense. The compliance review Mark announced. The audit he'd initiated. He wasn't investigating the department. He was preparing a narrative. Setting up a fall person. He'd done this dozens of times. This time he just decided to make it someone else's problem. The second HR meeting felt different. Mark arrived late. His usual confidence looked strained. Patricia sat beside Gerald, both with thick folders. Vincent Cross joined via video call. His face stern on the conference room screen. Thank you for coming in, Mark, Patricia began. We have some questions about the October 19th incident. Mark smiled. Of course. Happy to help. Gerald opened his folder. Can you walk us through your evening that day? Specifically between 6 and 7 p.m. Sure. I was finishing up work at my desk. Left around 6:30, I think. You didn't enter the restricted server room? Mark hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. No. Why would I? Vincent's voice came through the speaker. We have badge logs showing your entry at 6:43 p.m. The room went very quiet. Mark's smile faltered. That must be a system error. I definitely wasn't in that area. Gerald slid a photo across the table. Security footage. Timestamp. 6:43 p.m. Mark, clearly visible, swiping into the restricted area. The system recorded your 8-minute presence in the server room, Vincent continued. It also recorded a remote authorization from your phone at 6:46 p.m., granting temporary access to Hannah Price. Mark stared at the photo. The system must be wrong. Patricia leaned forward. Mark, security systems don't fabricate supervisor credentials. They log them. Every entry. Every authorization. Every override. Then someone used my credentials, Mark said quickly. This looks like identity theft. Someone cloned my access. Gerald shook his head. The authorization required your physical phone, your biometric verification, and your current location within the building. All 3 factors authenticated simultaneously. Systems can be hacked. Not these systems, Vincent interrupted. Not without leaving traces we'd detect immediately. Mr. Ellison, I've been running security here for 12 years. I know what hack systems look like. This isn't that. Silence filled the conference room. Heavy. Hemming. Patricia stopped taking notes. She just watched Mark. Gerald watched him too. Waiting. I need a break, Mark finally said. I need to think. We're not done. I need a break, Mark repeated, standing abruptly. This is overwhelming. I'm being accused of things that don't make sense. I need time to process. He walked out before anyone could stop him. Through the glass walls, I watched him disappear down the hallway. Patricia looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at Vincent's image on the screen. Nobody looked confused anymore. Friday afternoon, Patricia called. Hannah, the investigation has concluded. You're cleared of all accusations. The evidence shows you acted under direct supervisor authorization. You're welcome to return Monday. Relief washed over me. Thank you. We'll handle this quietly. No announcements, no drama. Just resume your position and we'll move forward professionally. Pause. What about Mark? That's a separate matter. Internal. We're handling it. And what about what he did? The humiliation. The false accusations. Hannah, we understand this was difficult. But the best path forward is to put it behind us. Come back. Do great work. Let's not dwell on what can't be changed. Let's move forward. Just like that. Pretend it never happened. Return to the same building, same department, same people who watched me get escorted out and said nothing. I need to think about it, I said. Patricia's voice tightened slightly. Think about what? Whether that's the right path forward for me. Long silence. Then, we'll need your decision by Monday. The call ended. I spent the weekend writing. Not an acceptance. A statement. 5 pages. Single-spaced. Chronological documentation of everything. Mark's pattern of verbal instructions without written authorization. The team meeting humiliation. HR's non-responses to my concerns. The systematic gaslighting. The retaliation after I ask questions. Every incident. Every witness. Every timestamp. At the bottom, I included the email exchanges Casey had forwarded. Mark's contradictory statements. His admission of handling problems. His narrative control. Then I added the security analysis. The pattern of accessing restricted areas through other employees. The 8-month timeline of protocol violations Vincent had shared. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about a system that protected people like Mark and sacrificed people like me when convenient. Monday morning I sent it. To Patricia. To Gerald. To Vincent. To the VP of Operations. To the anonymous compliance hotline. Subject. Formal statement. Hannah Price investigation. Then I filed an official complaint. Not just about the false accusations. About retaliation. About hostile work environment. About HR's failure to respond to my documented concerns. The complaint targeted Mark directly. With evidence. Then I waited. The response came faster than I expected. Tuesday morning Patricia called. Her voice was different. Careful. Almost nervous. Hannah, we've received your statement. We're taking this very seriously. I appreciate that. The executive team wants to conduct formal interviews. With you. With witnesses. With anyone who might have relevant information about the environment you described. When? This week. Starting today. Gerald will coordinate. By Wednesday, 3 executives I'd never met were sitting in conference rooms interviewing everyone. Casey, Taylor, James. People who'd watched Mark operate for years. Mark's calendar disappeared from the company directory. His office door stayed closed. His usual lunch spot in the cafeteria stayed empty. Thursday, someone noticed his nameplate was gone. Friday, his desk was being cleared by facilities. No announcement. No email. No explanation. Just absence. Like he'd never existed. Like the company was erasing him the same way he'd tried to erase me. Mark's termination happened so quietly I almost missed it. Casey texted me Monday morning. He's gone. Security walked him out over the weekend. His access is completely revoked. Did they announce it? No. Someone asked Patricia where Mark was. She said he was no longer with the company and that was all she could share. His name vanished from the org chart. His email bounced. His internal profile showed, "User not found." The company made him disappear the same way companies always do. Quietly, efficiently, without acknowledging what he'd done or why he was gone. People started asking me questions. In the break room, in the hallway, whispered conversations. What happened? Did he really falsify reports? Were you involved? I didn't answer, didn't confirm, didn't deny, just smiled politely and changed the subject. But everyone knew. Somehow, without announcement, without documentation, the truth spread anyway. People talk. They fill in blanks. They create narratives from silence. Mark's departure became legend. The manager who got caught. The guy who blamed someone else and the system proved him wrong. The cautionary tale. And I became something else. The person who fought back. Who didn't accept the frame. Who demanded proof. Wednesday afternoon, Patricia and Gerald scheduled a meeting. Not HR conference room this time. An executive suite. The VP of operations was there. A woman named Veronica Chen, who I'd only seen in company newsletters. "Hannah," Veronica began, "we owe you an apology. Real one. What happened to you was unacceptable." I nodded, waiting. "We'd like to offer you a new position. Senior Operations Manager. The role that was filled earlier. We're creating a second position. Same level, better pay. Direct report to me." Patricia added quickly, "We value your integrity and professionalism throughout this process." The same people who'd ignored my emails. Who'd watched me get escorted out. Who'd decided I was guilty before asking questions. Now they valued my integrity. What about the culture that enabled this? Yes. Veronica blinked. "I'm sorry. Mark operated like this for 8 months. Multiple employees. Dozens of violations. Nobody noticed until someone complained. What's changing to prevent the next Mark?" Silence. "We're implementing new oversight protocols," Gerald said carefully. "Enhanced compliance reviews. Better reporting channels." "That's not what I asked." Veronica shifted in her chair. "Hannah, we understand you're upset. This position is our way of showing renewed trust and commitment to your career." I looked at the offer letter on the table. Good title. Better salary. Career advancement. Everything I'd wanted 2 months ago. But I'd already made a decision. "I appreciate the offer," I said. "But I'm resigning." Patricia's eyes widened. "Resigning? Hannah, I've accepted a position elsewhere. I start in 2 weeks. It was true. While writing my statement, while documenting everything, I'd also been interviewing. 3 companies. 2 offers. I'd accepted the better one Friday. Veronica recovered first. "We'd hate to lose you. Especially now. Can we discuss what it would take to change your mind?" "Nothing," I said simply. "This isn't about compensation. It's about trust. And I can't work somewhere I don't trust to protect me." I left the executive suite without ceremony. Walked through the building one last time, past the glass HR room, past Mark's empty office, past the cubicles where people had watched and said nothing. Casey caught me at the elevator. "You're really leaving?" "Yeah. I don't blame you." She looked down. "I should have said something sooner. When he was doing that stuff to you. I knew it was wrong." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid if I spoke up, I'd be next." I pressed the elevator button. I was afraid too. I just got tired of being scared. Tyler appeared as the doors opened. "Hannah, wait. I owe you an apology." I laughed when Mark made those jokes. I shouldn't have. Others emerged from cubicles. James. Others whose names I barely knew. All offering variations of the same thing. Apologies. Explanations. Justifications. They'd known. They'd all known. And they'd all been afraid. The elevator doors closed before I responded. Mark's email arrived 3 weeks into my new job. Subject. Reference request. "Hannah, I hope you're doing well. I'm applying for a position and they're asking for references from my previous role. I know things ended badly, but I was hoping we could move past that professionally. I was under a lot of pressure and made some mistakes. Would you be willing to serve as a reference? Or just confirm my employment dates if they call? I read it once, then again. He'd framed me for his violations, humiliated me publicly, nearly destroyed my career. And now he wanted me to help him get another job. The audacity was almost impressive. Could write back. Could explain exactly what I thought of his mistakes. Could detail every way he'd failed as a leader, as a colleague, as a human being. Or I could do something else. I closed my laptop without responding. Deleted the email. Blocked his address. Later, a company from his application called my new employer asking about Mark. HR forwarded it to me. Do you want to respond? No, I said. I have nothing to say about him. That was the last silence. The one that said more than words ever could. Good one. Not by destroying him. Not by revenge. Just by telling the truth and refusing to help him avoid consequences. He'd lost by breaking his own rules. I'd won by following mine. And that was enough.